Today, we're going to be talking about spousal benefits for Social Security from an ex-spouse. So that means you're divorced and not currently married. If you are currently married to a spouse and you want to get spousal benefits, we just did a show on that. So watch that show. Also, your ex-spouse is currently alive in this scenario. If you've lost a spouse, your widow or widower, even to an ex-spouse, that's called survivor benefits, and that's for another show as well. So we're going to talk specifically to those of you who have an ex-spouse who's still alive and you want to claim spousal benefits against their record. Now, speaking of being still alive, let me bring in my co-host. There he is.
I've
Tony, you missed
managed to
my
make
last
it.
show.
I know I
Last
did.
show I did by myself, and I talked about spousal benefits from an existing current spouse. Today, we're talking about ex-spousal benefits. So there's certain rules that are different for an ex versus a current spouse.
Yep.
So I want to get
I
through
missed
them.
I missed the last show. I was in New England. First time I'd been to the New England states. I went to Maine and had a lobster roll that was amazing.
Wow. Wow. Well, we'll have to talk about that. See if you can pepper in any of your New England experiences into today's show. Okay. So, first rule is you have to be 62 because fundamentally, if you're going to claim a spousal benefit, you first have to claim your own and then get an increase based on your spouse's work record. So you can't just claim your spouse's spousal benefit and then switch to your own later. It doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
You first have to claim your own benefit and then go for the increase if
So I can't
applicable.
let mine roll up.
Correct. No.
I can't just not file, let mine roll up until like my full retirement age, like 67 or even 70, even better. But then still when I'm 62, file against an ex spouse.
Correct. Unless they're deceased. That's a separate show. But if they're
Okay.
alive, you can't get a spousal benefit without first claiming your own benefit.
Okay.
Of course, if you have a child under 16 or a disabled child before age 22, that's different. You can claim Social Security. But for the most part, 62, you have to file is the earliest you have to file. Doesn't mean you should, but in order to claim a spousal benefit, you have to be 62.
Right.
Also, we're talking about ex-spouses here. You have to have been married for 10 consecutive years. And when I say consecutive years, I mean you can get divorced and remarried, but it has to be within that year. That, you know, so that if you get married, divorced in 2025 and remarried in 2026, if it's outside the year, they don't consider it. It's got to be 10
I actually
consecutive
know
years.
somebody who was married for like 10 years, got divorced, went like 3 or 4 years, then got remarried. So that wouldn't count.
That would count because if they were
Oh,
married for 10 years,
but
it's 10
if
years.
they had been
If
married
it
5
wasn't
and
10,
5,
right,
yeah,
right, right,
yeah.
right. So, to do that, so you might say, well, how are they going to know? They'll request the divorce decree and the marriage certificate, and they'll look at the dates and say, you know, your marriage certificate says this date, your divorce decree says this date. Boom, there you go. And a lot of people don't have that original. They want originals. They can't just take a copy. I was going to say you were up in Maine. I remember doing the etchings of the tombstones up there. On the paper. I don't know. I forget what they call that. The carbon etchings. But
Hieroglyphics?
anyway, no. You take a sheet of paper and you
Oh,
use your yeah.
carbon copies. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you may not have your divorce decree and marriage certificate, but if you do, you're gonna have to give them the originals. They'll make copies and give you the originals back. But I would suggest you file the appointment and make the request for spousal benefits as soon as you can. And if they come back and say we need proof, you can look for that because if you finally find it, they'll go back to your original date. So that's
Ah.
I think it's called a protective filing. So Social Security would go back to that.
Oh, that's good to know. So
Yeah,
even if you're not sure where if you have to get a divorce decree and go through that process, file right away. So you're
right.
saying if I'm 62 or over and I file for Social Security and I was married for 10 years or longer consecutively, then I can file for spousal benefits. But you mentioned the divorce decree, and I actually know somebody, a friend of mine, got divorced, and I was telling them these things because we've talked about this before, these rules, you and I, Dan, and I told them, well, you can file on your ex-spouse's, and they said, no, the divorce decree said that I was unable to file on their benefits. It says it in the divorce decree. Is that
Yeah.
true? Is that a
No,
real rule?
that's a BS meter goes bing, red light. You can't do that. Like I hear this. Yeah, my divorce decree. I'm not allowed. My divorce decree said I can't. Right? That's bull. The divorce decrees are a state issue. That's and that's a private matter. When you bring that to the divorce decree to the Social Security office, they're not going to look at all the stipulations. They're just looking for the dates.
Yeah,
And if it's 10 years, it's 10 years. You can't prevent someone from getting a federal benefit as part
right.
of a divorce decree.
Oh, okay.
Now, maybe you
Good to
could
know.
say, well, maybe you could say you can't, you'll get less pension or less alimony or something if you claim Social Security, but they can't prevent you from getting a benefit that you federally deserve.
Yeah,
That's bogus. So, yeah, don't listen to that. They're not going to look through the divorce decrees. You kidding me? It's
sure.
hard enough to get the Social Security office to even read what you give them and look for dates. Um, so, but I said you have to be 62 because you have to file on your own. Your ex-spouse must also be 62 because they need to be eligible to claim Social Security. And um, the question becomes, do they need to be filed?
I've always heard that the ex-spouse, if they haven't filed for Social Security, you can't collect on their benefits, even if you meet those other requirements, like you were married for 10 years. But that's not true.
Well, so if you're currently married, in the last show we talked about, if you're currently married, you can't file a spousal benefit if your current spouse has not filed yet. They have to open the window for you.
Sure.
But for an ex-spouse, you do not have to, they do not have to be collecting Social Security. Because think about this for a minute. If you get divorced, which most divorces don't end well, right? They're not
Right.
a good scenario. I could see a scenario where someone will say, "Well, I'm not going to file but for benefits because I don't want my ex-spouse opening that window for them.
Sure.
I will never claim
Yeah,
if
if
that
that
prevents
was
them from getting half
if
of
that
mine."
was true, yeah, just to be vindictive. Yeah. Some
Right,
divorces have been messy. Yeah. Yeah.
right, and they'll even write in the divorce decree, like you said, you
Yeah.
can't touch my Social Security.
Fortunately, you and I, neither one of us have ever had to go through that, but so many people do end up getting divorced these days. And I can just see some people being vindictive like that. Like, oh,
Right,
I'll prevent them from being able to file. I'll put it in the divorce decree, which is bogus. That won't matter.
bogus.
Or
Right,
I won't file myself, but really they're hurting themselves too, because they're not
right.
able to collect then. So
So if you're married, you have to file to open the window for your spousal benefit for your spouse. But if you're divorced, they can't force that and they don't want that vindictive nature. So they just say as long as your ex-spouse is of age to file, so they have to be 62, then that's fine. They don't actually have to file to
62
open
or
the window
older.
for you.
Yeah.
So now the cynic in me is like, well, okay, let's say we're married. I want half of my current spouse, but they want to delay to 70 and I don't want to wait for the window to open at 70.
Right.
That's 6 years from now, say. I want half because my Social Security record is low. I want half of my ex-spouses, my current spouses. You could theoretically get divorced and then that window is open,
That's
but you have to
crazy.
wait 2 years. You have to wait 2
Oh,
years. So, once you get divorced, that window, it's called the independently entitled divorced spouse. That's what the IEDS, which is not to be confused with the explosive device. That's IEDs. That's a
no,
bad. No, I
no.
mean, that's what comes to my mind. That's terrible. But um, so what that means is, as a divorced spouse, as long as you've been divorced for more than 2 years, you can open that spousal window whether or not your ex-spouse is filed. So that confuses a lot of people because that's the main difference between an ex-spouse versus a current spouse. Current spouse, you have to open the window. Ex-spouse, they don't require it because
So
for obvious reasons.
So let's go back. I think you buried an important note there, and I want to clarify. Let's say I was married or somebody was married for 10 years. They
Yes,
get divorced, but they can't right away claim ex-spousal benefits. You say there is a period they have to wait 2 years after the divorce. Is that what you said?
correct, correct. So you can't just get divorced and immediately claim a spousal benefit on them. You can claim
Right.
your own,
Right.
and then you get the spousal increase. But yeah, there's that waiting period to prevent, I guess, I don't know, I guess to prevent people from doing what I just said, which is let's just get divorced so we can open the window and while you
Sure.
continue to get yours to delay. So
Yeah.
yeah. But now, so the question is, oh, how much? How much am I going to get? That's really the question. And it's the same as in the last show, but I'll just go through it again because it's important. You'll get up to half of your spouse's, your ex-spouse's primary insurance amount. So that is their full retirement age benefit. So the key point is it doesn't matter if they take theirs early, if they take theirs late, or if they take it at all in the case of an
Oh,
ex-spouse.
wow.
You're going to get what up to half of their full retirement age benefit, whatever that is. So even if they take it early at 62, I'm going to take it early just so that my ex-spouse gets less. No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at
Wow.
all when they
So
take it.
it's
It
not
matters
based on
when you
what
take
they're
it.
actually getting. It's based on what their
Correct.
full retirement amount would have been. In other words,
Right.
if they'd waited till 67 to file or
Right.
66.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the number that the Social Security Administration uses to determine your spousal benefit is
Oh,
your
that's good.
ex-spouse's PIA.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's a
theoretically,
positive.
they could take it at 62 and you be getting more than half
Yeah.
of theirs if you wait till full retirement age because they
Yeah.
took it early.
Yeah. And if they take it early, they're locking in a low number, a low amount,
Right.
the lowest they can get. And you're
Right.
still going to get 50% of their full amount, which is great.
Right. If you wait until your full retirement age, that's the kicker. So the what matters is not when they claim benefits, but when you claim benefits.
Ah,
And the
okay.
benefits, if you claim early, which is before your full retirement age, 67, then you get a discount. Okay,
I
so here's
see.
the formula. If you take it early, every month you take it early, there's a discount of less than 1% discount. But the earliest you could claim your ex-spousal benefit would be 62, and you would get 32.5% of your ex-spouse's PIA. If you wait all the way to your full retirement age, you'll get 50% of your ex-spouse's PIA. So the most you can ever get as a spousal benefit is half of your ex-spouse's full retirement age benefit.
Okay. Well, and here's a funny situation. I was thinking about this as you were talking, Dan. What if you were married twice and each time it was more than 10 years? In other words, I actually have a friend who was married twice and divorced twice. And each time one was like 11 years, the next was like 10 and a half years. So could they do spousal claims off both spouses then, since those qualify? Could I
Okay.
do spousal
Yeah.
benefits off both?
You could do you can off either or. So you don't get both.
Ah,
You never when it's Social Security, if you get a survivor benefit, spousal benefit, or your own benefit, you're only getting one benefit at a time.
right.
Now,
Okay.
in a spousal benefit from an ex-spouse, you do get two payments in one. So you get your own. Remember, you have to take your own,
Yeah.
and then you're getting a spousal increase up to half of the ex-spouses. Those get combined into one payment,
So
but it's
you just
broken
wanna
down.
pick the higher of the 2.
Right, you have to pick the higher. You can pick the higher of the two. So if you play your cards right, you could probably have three, maybe four ex-spouses to choose from, and you say whichever one's going to give you the highest.
That would be
And
something.
also on a
Hopefully
separate
not.
show, but you get a survivor benefit from all the four, which when they pass, whichever one has the highest record. So you could switch. So if one passes after the other one and they have a higher record, you could switch the. But here's
Hmm,
an important thing to note, Tony. If you do get remarried, if you get divorced more than 10 years, you're getting a ex-spousal benefit, and then you get remarried and you're 64 now, your spousal benefit stops because you got a new spouse. So you don't get the ex-spousal benefit. You would get a survivor benefit if that's separate rules for survivor benefit. But if your ex-spouse is still alive and then you get remarried, you have a new spouse. So now you're going to have new spousal benefits based on your current spouse. And there's new rules.
Wow,
So
gets
something
complicated.
to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, if our listeners want, they can give you a call, ask you questions about this, and get a written financial plan in place too. I encourage all our listeners
That's
to
right.
do that.
I put the Social Security maximization report and I say, do you have any ex-spouses? And we put them all in there. You'll have to do some calling and find out from Social Security office. You'll call them up and say, here's my ex-spouse. You may not even know if they're alive or dead. And you
Right.
may not have their Social Security number.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but they're not going to know
they're gonna-
your ex-spouse. This doesn't affect some people say, I'm going to get them by filing against their benefits.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect their benefit, and
No
they don't
effect.
even know you're doing it. So
they won't have any. They won't know unless you tell them. The only way your ex-spouse is going to know you're claiming is if you tell them. That might be, haha. Guess what I just did? I filed it. It doesn't impact their new spouse, their family benefit, their limit.
Right.
It's separate.
Yeah.
So don't think. Some people. I don't want to pull from my ex-spouse's benefit because he got remarried and his new wife. I don't want to. That's mean. No, it's totally separate, no impact, and no one's going to know. So don't feel bad or good about it because it doesn't change things. The only other point I want to make, Tony, is a lot of people in the past said, "Oh, I can't get an ex-spouse benefit or a spousal benefit because I deal with the government pension offset, windfall elimination provision. I'm not going to get anything, so it doesn't matter." Well, that Social Security Fairness Act passed in 2025. Eliminated those, so you may now be able to qualify for a spousal benefit when you didn't in the past. You always qualified, but you wouldn't get anything because of the government pension offset. But now those are gone. You can refile and say, "Give me my spousal benefit off my ex-spouse."
Excellent.
Something to consider. So, ex-spouses benefits are an extremely important part of Social Security. You're married. You've been living together. You've been married 10 years. And your Social Security record's a joint. It's based on them. You might be staying home and not working, so your benefit's less. And you've always banking on getting a spousal benefit. Then you get divorced. That spousal benefit shouldn't go away. It doesn't. So it's a very important part. You just got to know the rules. That formula is archaic, but just call a Social Security office. Don't run the math yourself. That's just I'm helping my kids in high school with their math. I don't even know how they do it, but just call up Social Security office. They'll tell you how much you're entitled to from your ex-spouse or two ex-spouses, depending on your situation.
Yeah.
But the key is this is a lifetime benefit because in order to get an ex-spousal benefit, you have to file for your own. And maybe filing for your own is a good idea. Maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe you should delay. Maybe you're still working. There's a lot of different factors. So think it through, but just know that you can get Social Security benefits from an ex-spouse. And the key difference between a current spouse and ex-spouse is they don't have to be filed. That window doesn't have to be open. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And that's it, Tony.
Yep. Great show today, Dan.
Yeah. Thanks for a good show. And we'll catch everyone next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.